Thank you for joining me in this how to play video of 7 Wonders. We also have a playthrough video and a review video when you get a chance. The reason why we've picked a game like 7 Wonders is that you see behind me are games from the top 20 family games on Board Game Geek. So we're trying, over time, we're going to do the top 100 family games, and 7 Wonders currently in August of 2019 is a top 10 family game. Now, it's not worth giving the specific number because it fluctuates. But let's get to the how to play 7 Wonders. So I use the rules as a guide here in case you want to follow along. So let's first start out with the object of the game. The object is to score the most points after 3 ages building different structures. You'll be building military structures, civilian, scientific achievements, and so forth, which I'll go over in a moment. So the next thing to do now is to start looking at setup. So you got to prepare the decks because this is a card drafting game, and the more players you have, the more cards you're going to use. So you'll see right here are the cards we're not using for the 3-player setup that we have here. So in this pile, it's only cards needed for 3 players. So if I show you how to find that, on the bottom of each card, you'll see a symbol here that says 3+. So that means you included for a 3 and a 2-player game. And let's see, is there a 2-player symbol here? Well, there's not a 2-player symbol because there's a variant for 2 players. So if you look at the cards we're not playing with, it will say 4+ here. Got to get this in focus. Then it will go 5+. Now you'll see that I have them sleeved because it's a card drafting game. I wanted to protect the cards since you'll be exchanging them often. Now I don't do this with too many of my games, but 7 Wonders is such a good game, I thought it was worth sleeving. So you'll see that you have cards for up to 7 players. So those are removed. The next thing now, according to the rules, is to prepare, well, you have your first age deck, your second age deck, and then your third age deck is prepared in a particular way. So if you look here, depending on the number of players, you're going to place 5 guilds in that deck. So here you have your typical third age cards. Actually, let me show that on a different camera. You have your third age cards here. And then you're going to take the guild cards, which are purple. You're going to shuffle them. And a 3-player game will pick 5. 1, 2, 5. Put the ones you're not using off to the side. Then you're going to shuffle those guild cards in with the regular third age cards. So that's how you prepare the decks. The next thing now is to prepare the wonders. Each player will get a wonder, which will be shuffled up. You'll deal 1 to each player, and then they'll see what wonder they get. Now you could do variants where you give them more than 1 card if you're playing with less players, let them choose. And then you can have to decide if you're going to play the A side or the B side. Here I already have it set up and we're playing the A side, which is slightly easier for an introductory game. If you turn it over to the other side, there's just more symbols that you might have to look up as to what it does here on this reference chart. So for your first time playing, just play with the A side, and as you get more confident in the game, you play with the B side, or you want more variety. So anyways, after each player gets their wonder, they pick their wonder board. You'll see there's even more wonders that are associated with the cards. And then you'll put these off to the side here. So the next step is to look at do the coins here. So all the coins are placed here. Coins are used to buy things. Each player gets 3 coins. Next is the conflict tokens are placed here. These are positive conflict tokens, so if you have the most military, depending on the age, you'll get positive points, or if you have less military than your neighbor, you'll get negative points. So let's take a look at the next part of the rules. So now we're on to game overview. And so that's where the actions you can take as a player. First, you're going to shuffle the deck during a round, and each player will get 7 cards. So here I am simulating that. And then they'll look at their cards. And then they have to decide when they're looking at it. Well, first they're going to choose it, and then do something with that card. And then you're going to pass the remaining cards, at least for the first stage, in clockwise order. So you'll see right here. This means you're going to pass the card. You'll pass the 6 cards that you don't take in clockwise order to your neighbor. On the second age, it will go counterclockwise. Now this has more of an effect when you play with more players. And then again, it will go back to clockwise in the third age. So again, you choose a card, you do something with that card, and you give your hand to your neighbor. So when you choose, so the next step then is, what can you do with that card? Well, you can build the structure on the card if you have the resources to pay for it or the money to buy resources from your neighbor. Or you can convert that card to build a wonder, a stage of your wonder. So you'll see here that there are 3 stages, actually from left to right, of each wonder here. Now you don't have to build these, and you can build these in any age. It's not, doesn't mean you build this in the first age, the second age, and the third age. You can build 2 of them in the first age and wait to the third age to build the last one, or not build any at all. Or, again, backing up here, you either build something with the card, build a stage of your wonder, or discard it for 3 coins. And so that's pretty easy. You take a card, and you just discard it, and you get 3 coins. Now the reason why you might want to do that, is because you can't build it. Eventually you're going to have limited, because you're going to keep on passing the cards around. You'll have 7 the first turn, 6, then 5, then 4, then 3, then 2. It might be the last 2 cards, because you don't, when you have the last 2, you'll decide which one you want. The last one will be discarded. The one that you want, you either pay for it, or if you can't use it, you turn it in for coins. And that's part of the strategy, though, is that you may, on purpose, get rid of a card that you know that your neighbor wants. So you could either convert it into a wonder, which would slide underneath here, and you pay for the wonder, or you discard it for 3 coins. Okay, so let's take a look at the type of cards. Here are the type of cards, but let's take a look at the list, though, in the rule book. So you'll see that there are raw materials, which are these cards in brown. And you'll use these to build different things. So you'll see, for instance, that you're going to need a stone to build this civilian structure, which are in blue. Here are finished goods. You have papyrus, glass, and loom. You have science advancements in green. You have military structures in red, commercial structures in yellow, and as I already mentioned, civilian structures in blue. So again, if I were to review this here in the rules, if you're following along, it goes over it right here on page 3. Now, it's important to pay attention to the symbols as to what it gives you to build things here for the raw materials and I'm sorry, not finished goods, manufactured goods. This symbol means here is victory points. Again, you're trying to get the most points. So civilian structures give you victory points, but other things can as well. This will give you gold when you build it. It will give you 5 gold. This will give you military, and I'll go over some of these other symbols here in a moment. And then here are the scientific symbols, which you want to create sets. And then again, here's the military symbol here. Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is again, one of the actions is that you can build something, construct something with your cards. So again, the 3 things you can do, I know I'm repeating myself, is you can construct the card by paying for its cost. Some cards will be free, which I'll go over here in a moment. you can convert it into a wonder, or you can trade in that card for 3 gold. So let's go over the anatomy of a card. First, you look at if it has a coin cost. So this example, to build this card, which will give you either a wood or a clay, will cost 1 gold. So if this player were to take that card, they'd have to put 1 gold into the bank. The next thing to do is to look at if it's free. So if there's nothing there, here's a raw material that's free, it doesn't cost anything. And then when you do build certain cards, such as the raw materials or the manufactured goods, you're going to place it like this. So this is kind of your production that you'll have every turn. Now you'll have access to this every turn, access. And when we go over trading, you'll see that your neighbors will also have access to it. So I might as well mention this now. If, for instance, this player here with the Colossus wants to build, let me see if I find the right card here. Say they wanted to build this card here that costs, that's a wood. Okay, here we go. 1 stone. Okay? Well, right now, all they can produce is gold. But they can still build this by looking to the player to their right and player to their left. And this player here on the left does have stone. So this player can pay the player to the left 2 gold, 2 coins, to build this. And this does not go here, it actually goes up here, and you're going to create different stacks of colors above your wonder board. This does not mean that this player doesn't have stone. It does mean, though, that they can also use the same resource. In fact, the player to the right could also use that stone. So you could actually have the player to the right, player to the left, and the player who owns the stone use stone, 1 stone each during that turn. Now it's important to remember this rule as well. You cannot have duplicate named cards. So that's a little rule that people will forget. So let's get back to when you're constructing things. So I went over commerce, which was paying somebody paying a player to your left or right for a manufactured good or a raw material for 2 gold. So again, here's the raw materials and here's the manufactured good. So you can pay your neighbors for those. But you can also do it cheaper if you have commercial cards or commerce cards that allow you to trade for cheaper. So this means that if you've played this card, actually you can play it for free, and then on the following turn you can buy these raw materials for 1 gold from your neighbor instead of 2. So if that happens, let's say this player had it and they needed to get a stone. Notice where the arrow is. The arrow is going to the right. They can buy that stone for 1 gold from that player instead of paying 2. And they can only do that once. Now, it's also important to remember that when you have these type of cards, it does not produce goods. So the player that is next to this player, so going back to here, so just because the Colossus player has this card doesn't mean the player to the right and the left can get these goods from him. It only means that this player can trade for cheaper. So again, that's another rule that people can forget, is that the yellow cards don't necessarily produce the commercial cards. This allows you for cheaper trade. It doesn't necessarily allow you to trade, allow your neighbors to trade for them. So if you look at another example here, maybe it's an age 2. where I can see some. Okay. So for instance, this card here in age 2 will grant that player one of these raw materials, but the neighbors cannot trade for these raw materials. The only cards that can be traded with by the player on your left or right, the only things that or you can trade with on your left or right are, again, the manufactured goods or the raw materials. You cannot trade for trade items. Again, another little rule that people can forget. All right, so moving on. Let's take a look at another important distinction here. So sometimes cards will give you free construction. So here's the portion of the rules that talks about this. You can create what are called chains. And in fact, if you look at the very back of the rule book, you'll see right here, let me go to a different camera, what goods can produce other goods. So that means, not goods, I'm sorry, it's like a tech tree. If you get certain things in age 1, it could help you get something free in age 2 and even into age 3. So if we look at age 1 here on the civilian structures, if you have the baths and you purchase that, it will allow you to build the aqueduct for free. You will not have to pay the 3 stone if you get the baths. So let's take a look at the baths here. I got to find it. Okay, so here's a baths card. I have to build it for 1 stone. So either I have the stone in my raw materials, or I have to pay a neighbor for that stone. So I have the baths, and then right here it shows me that I will be able to build the aqueduct on age 2 if someone doesn't build it before me. So that's one thing that can happen. So on age 2, you'll see here, here's the age 2 card. If this card happens to come my way and I have the baths, this says here that if you have the baths, you don't have to build it for 3 stone. So that's one thing to keep in mind, is how some items that you build in one age will help you build things in a later age. So here's the commercial. You can see that, for instance, the East Trading Post or the West Trading Post can help you build the Forum or the Haven up until age 3. And here are military structures that will help you build things later on. And then there's even some structures where you need one or the other. So if you have the apothecary in age 1, it can help you build the stables or the dispensary. Let's take a look now at how drafting occurs, how a sample turn goes. So each player begins an age with 7 cards. So I will model this player. So here are my 7 cards I have to choose from. And right away I'm going to look at what things cost. So here I need a glass, and here I need a gold. And so I could look to my player to the right. I could build this military structure and pay 2 gold, but I want to probably keep my gold. And this player has glass. Wow, I could build everything in my hand here if I want to pay the gold, but I probably want to go for something free. Now I'm going to look at my wonders board here and consider, what am I going to need to build my wonders? Because it's going to give me victory points. This will give me 3 victory points. This will give me 9 gold and 7 victory points. So I need stone, wood, and papyrus to build these wonders. So I'm thinking ahead here. And now if I want to go for military, I haven't gone over this yet because this happens after each age. Whoever has the most military is going to get more victory points. And you can end up with negative points if you have least military. So knowing that I need stone and wood, I will go for this card. So I put it down and I pass to the right. Let's say this person just goes for a random one. They pass it. Oh, actually, we're going clockwise. So to the left. All right, so we'll reveal our cards simultaneously. I build a wood. It slides underneath my resources. Let's see what this person built randomly. They built a commercial structure, and so they're going to pay one gold for that. Actually, they don't pay anything for it. They can trade for 1 gold, these items here. So that's one thing that could be confusing. I almost made that mistake. This means it costs 1 gold to get those items from a player on your left or right. The cost will always be in the left-hand corner. So that goes above the board right here. And this player decided to go for victory points and built the altar, which will give them the temple on a later age. So they're thinking ahead here. So right away they're going for victory points. So now we have 6 cards. I look at my 6 cards again. Oh, I went the wrong way. I'm looking at the same ones. Okay. Now there's some very nice items here. I'm going to go for this one because remember I want to get stone to build my wonder. So I'm going to take that one, pass clockwise. I'll take a random one, clockwise, random one, clockwise. So here, this is what I built. We reveal at the same time. So he's going to be Mr. Trader here. And these cards will help him get other things later on, so it's not necessarily a bad idea. This person went for resources as well, so he also has a stone. Now, because I really wanted this stone, it gives me the option to build a stone or a wood. It's going to cost me 1 gold to build that, so I pay that, and this goes right underneath here. So now we have 5 cards to look at. So I look at what I'm going here for. I'm going to go for military now. Now because I have a wood, in fact I have 2 wood, it's going to cost me a wood to build this, and I have it. In fact I have 2. So they're going to take a random one. Reveal at the same time. I built my military. He built a gold, and he built a manufactured good glass. So this also, remember I said I could pay for that with wood. So now we have 4 cards. I look at my 4 cards. Now I could try to go for science and then be able to build these items later on in a future age. You want to have sets of science. But instead, I'm going to deny my neighbor the opportunity to get a military. So I'm going to put this down like this, knowing that I'm going to convert it into a wonder. We pass to the left, clockwise. They're taking random ones. And I don't even reveal it. I just put it underneath here. I have to pay, I already have 1 stone, but I need another stone. And so now I need to pay 2 gold to somebody with stone. 2 coins. My neighbor to the right has stone, so I pay him 2 coins. What did my neighbor to the left build? So he's going victory points, building civilian structures. Same with this person. Okay, so now we have 3 cards. Here's what I have. Do I need gold later on? No. I do need papyrus later on to build my last wonder, so I'm going to take that. Take a random. Okay, so reveal again. I tuck this underneath, so I'm running out of space here. Let me just move it down a little bit. And again, this person's going for trade, so now they can trade for basically trade with anybody to get for 1 gold each, no matter where, whether or not the player's to the left or the right. So they're definitely set up for trading. This person is going now for science. And now we have the last 2 cards. As mentioned before, we're not going to be playing the last card, so 1 will be discarded. You do not turn it in for gold. So let's say I want to take this one. It goes here. Oops. A little klutzy there. All right. So they're taking random cards because they're not actual players. Now this player is just going to decide, you know what, I don't even want this card. I'm going to turn it in for 3 gold. And you do not show it to the other players. So he's got a lot of coins. This person is not going to discard it. They're going for resources. And I just took another commercial. Actually, I'm going to turn it in for gold as well. I don't really need a loom. So that's the first age of drafting cards. Now we go to an important stage, and as we look at who has the most military structures. So here I'm the only one with military structures. If the Colossus player had this wonder, they'd have to have this stage and then this stage. That means you would have had to have built it, basically tucked in cards and paid for it. This one would have cost 2 wood and 3 clay. They would have had the most military structures. They'd have 2 versus my 1. But they didn't do that. So because I have the most military this age, I get 1 victory point in the first age because I have more military than the player to my right and more military than the player to my left. So during the first age, I get 1 victory point for each neighbor I have more. In the second age, if you have the most military, you can get 3 victory points. And the last age, where it's really important, you can get 5. Now, the neighbors, this neighbor here doesn't have any military, so he's not going to get anything. But because he has less than me, he gets a -1. And it's always going to be -1 no matter what age. Same thing for this player. They have less than me, -1, tied with the player to the right, so no victory points or no -1. And you'll calculate this every age. So let's take a look at what's next here. So now we divvy up. So notice these are discarded. We'll go into the second age now. Shuffle it to 7 cards to each player, and you'll repeat. And you'll see now, though, that there will be things that matter in terms of being able to get things for free. So the Colossus player is going to want to try to get the statue for free or the temple for free. Notice I already have 4 victory points. So in age 2, let's take a look at what the statue is worth 4 victory points if they're able to get that. And then the temple is worth 3 victory points. So if this player manages to get those cards, they might be just going for building a ton of civilian structures and going for victory points that way. Whereas my strategy might be I'm going for military structures and I want to get 3 victory points in the second age and then 5 victory points for each neighbor. So that could be possibly 16 victory points I'll get. 5 for each one, and 3 for each one in the age 2, and then 5 for each one in age 3. That could be 16. While the Colossus player is going for civilian structures. So it evens out. However, as mentioned, you saw that maybe I want to build the statue just because he has the altar. Actually, not the altar, the theater. Whatever the case is, I'm getting confused. I may want to deny that player that card so they can't build it for free. So I could either build it with the resources I have or just discard the card. Discard the card and get 3 gold and deny the player to my right. So age 3 is the same way, except now we're going to have guild cards. Now guild cards, this is why you'll want the handy reference sheet, because it will go over what all the different symbols mean on the guild card. Because remember, we only played with so many of the guild cards. These are the ones we're not playing with. So you can kind of forget from game to game. But if we were just to take a look at a couple samples here, if you were to get this guild card, it would cost 3 clay and a glass. It will give you 1 victory point for every military, every red card, the player to the left the player to your left and player to your right has. So this can be really good if your neighbors are going for a lot of military. But you might not want it if they're not going for military. So if we look at another sample one, this card, so you're not doing very well militarily, so you can basically break even. Well, actually, it's the player to your left and right. So you may have -1s on your own city, but really you're looking for what players have -1s to your left and right. So it's not going to help you if you have a bunch of -1s, but if your neighbors have a bunch of -1s. So this would be a good card for me to get if I'm giving my neighbors a lot of -1s because I have a lot of military. So you got to look at the cards carefully. I almost misread that one. So this one here is also pretty interesting. The down arrow means that you're going to get a victory point for every wonder that you've built, stage of your wonder, sorry, and for every stage of your neighbor's wonders. So that's a potentially 9 victory points because you have 3 stages and your neighbors have 3 stages. So this can be a really nice victory point card if you're able to get it. So that's 7 wonders. So you're going to go through 3 stages. You're going to draft basically 6 cards each age. So that's potentially 18 cards you can get. And as you know, you can convert it for gold or place it under wonders. And then now we're going to get to scoring. So after all is said and done, you're going to look at the score pad. And so you'll count up your military. So you look at the coins, the chips that you have for each player. So let's take a look at this one right here. My son had -1 in military. My wife had -1, and I had 10. I went military that game. Now you look at your coins. So for every 3 coins you have, it's worth 1 victory point. So I had Julie had at least 12 victory points. Sorry, 12 coins, which gave her 4 victory points. Then you look at your wonders. We all completed our wonders, and with the boards that we had, it was worth 10 if you completed all your stages. Now here's the civilian structures. This is what you saw me randomly doing here with the Colossus player. They were going for civilian structures, the blue. Then you look at the commercial structures. Some cards will give you victory points. So for instance, you'll get 1 gold when you build this for every yellow card, including the 1 when you build it, and 1 victory point for every yellow card that you have, commercial card that you have at the end. So as you saw here, this is a really good card for this player, the Alexandria player. And by the way, this is called Rhodes. I just call it the Colossus player. Anyway, and this is the Lighthouse. But for this player to build this, they had to get 1, 2, 3, 4 gold and 1, 2, 3, 4 victory points at the end of the game. So this would be a very good card for them to get if they're going commercial. So in this particular game, I was only going for commercial. Now the guilds, depending on what cards you can get victory points for that. Now the green, the science. Now this is where some people can get confused. When you have a set, let me actually show that in the rule book here. So you know where to find it. So if you only have 1 symbol, it's worth victory point. If you have 2 symbols, it's exponential. It's worth 4 victory points. 3 of the same symbol, 9. 4 of the same symbol, 16. If you have 3 different symbols, you get 7 victory points. So you could potentially get a lot with science. So here is an example here. Here are 3 symbols. That's 7 victory points. If you added this one in, it's 7 plus 4. That would be 11. And this would be another 4. So it would be 15. Let's say it was a situation like this where you didn't have a complete set, a matching set. This would be worth 4, 5, 6 because you only have singles. So that's how you count science. So back to this. So that's the science, and then you add them all up, and whoever has the most victory points wins. So that's the overview of 7 wonders. as best I could anyway. There's a lot of steps in there. But it actually is a simple game. The hardest thing to the game is the symbols. And so that's what you'll spend a lot of time looking up. You'll be looking at, what does this mean? And you'll just look it up real quick. It doesn't take too long, and the more you play it, obviously, the easier that it gets. Now, it does include variants for 2 players. In addition, there's more information about the wonders. As you start playing the B side of the wonders, it gives you more detail. For instance, this wonder, when you build the stage, you can look at any cards that have been discarded and pick one and build it for free. So this is actually, you want to time this right to make sure there's some cards in the discard pile. But that's why they include this little appendix here, so you know what those wonders do. So 7 Wonders is actually very easy to play once you get used to all the symbols. And that's why the first game you're going to be looking through the cheat sheet or the rule book for the symbols as you start to learn the game.